The transport shuttle kicked up red dust as it touched down on Greenhold's surface. Daniel Worth grabbed his gear bag and stepped onto the ramp, squinting against the double suns hanging low in the purple sky. Around him, dozens of other colonists from a half-dozen species scrambled to claim their assigned plots of land. This was it. The Galactic Settlement Bureau's newest frontier world, open to anyone willing to risk everything for a fresh start. Daniel had left behind a failed marriage and a construction job on Earth's Arctic stations. Now he owned nothing but the clothes on his back, a toolbox and 1 square km of alien soil. Plot 73. Report to the registration pavilion. The automated voice crackled through speakers mounted on temporary poles. Daniel shouldered his bag and walked toward a large tent where Hollis, the Menra administrator, sat behind a folding table covered in digital tablets. Hollis looked like an oversized otter with gray fur and worried eyes. His species valued order and safety above all else. Name? He asked, tapping at a screen. Daniel Worth, Earth Colony. Hollis scanned through files. Ah yes, human single applicant. Construction background. He looked up with concern. You understand the deadline? Storm season begins in 6 standard cycles. Your structure must be completed and certified before then, or you forfeit your claim. I understand. Many species find the timeline challenging, humans especially. Your kind tends to overthink. Hollis handed him a data chip. This contains your plot coordinates, building regulations, and supply voucher. Standard package only, good luck. Daniel took the chip and headed toward his assigned land. Along the way, he passed other colonists already hard at work. A Bravaki named Wren was assembling prefabricated wall panels with mechanical precision. The insectoid's forearms moved in perfect coordination, clicking pieces together like a living machine. His shelter was already taking shape, a perfect geometric dome that would be finished within 2 days at this pace. Further on, Petra the Quill was constructing an elevated platform. Her species came from a world of flying predators, so they always built upward. She worked quickly, her feathered hands securing support beams while her wings maintained balance. Her structure would be done in 3 days, maybe 4. Daniel reached his plot and dropped his bag. The land was flat and empty, stretching toward distant mountains. Good soil underneath the dust. A small stream ran along the eastern boundary. He walked the perimeter slowly, noting where water collected, how the wind moved, where the suns cast shadows at different times of day. A young Bravaki child wandered over from a neighboring plot. Are you going to build? Finn asked, his compound eyes reflecting rainbow colors. Eventually, Daniel said, my parent says humans are slow. Says you think too much and do too little. Daniel smiled. Maybe. Or maybe we think about the right things. Finn didn't understand that, so he skewed back to where Wren was working. Daniel heard them talking and clicking sounds, probably discussing the strange human who wasn't rushing to assemble walls before dark. The first day, Daniel walked every meter of his land. He dug test holes in different spots, checking soil composition and drainage. He collected samples of native stone from the stream bed. He cut down 3 of the thin trees growing wild near the water and stripped them, testing their strength and flexibility. By evening, the other colonists had made visible progress. Wren's dome was half finished. Petra's platform stood 6 meter tall with walls going up. Hollis had completed his own bunker-style shelter near the administration pavilion, all reinforced walls and triple-sealed doors. Daniel had a pile of stones, 3 stripped logs, and several holes in the ground. The second day, Daniel gathered more materials. He found clay deposits near the stream and spent hours digging, working the clay with his hands until he understood its properties. He collected more stone, selecting specific sizes and shapes. He cut more timber, measuring carefully, marking pieces with chalk. Wren approached at midday, his dome now complete except for the door installation. You should begin construction, he said, his voice translated through a universal device. Time is limited. Your approach is inefficient. I'm working on the foundation, Daniel said. I see no foundation. I see only material scattered about. The foundation isn't just what you build on. It's understanding what you're building for. Wren's antenna twitched in confusion. For survival. For shelter from the storms. What else exists? Daniel didn't answer directly. Your dome is impressive, very efficient. Efficiency is survival. I will finish today. You have not started. Wren walked away, his disapproval clear in the stiff way he moved. By the end of the second day, most colonists had working shelters. Basic, yes, but functional. They had roofs, walls, sealed doors, climate control systems, hummed. Energy shields flickered on to test their integrity. Daniel had organized his materials into careful piles. Stone sorted by size, timbers cut to specific lengths, clay prepared in covered containers, and he had started digging not just test holes now, but a genuine foundation, trench that outlined something much larger than the standard single room. Shelter everyone else had built. Petra flew down as the sun set. You worry me, human. 4 days remain. You cannot possibly finish in time. I'll finish, Daniel said. How? You have not even begun the walls. I've begun everything that matters. The rest is just assembly. Petra ruffled her feathers in agitation. Assembly is the difficult part. Not if you prepare correctly. That night, Hollis called an emergency meeting at his completed bunker. All the colonists gathered inside the cramped space, sitting on fold-out chairs or standing against the walls. Daniel arrived last, dust on his clothes and clay under his fingernails. We must discuss the human situation, Hollis began, his voice tight with worry. Daniel has made insufficient progress. The storms will kill anyone caught outside, without proper shelter. I respectfully disagree, Daniel said. I'm on schedule. You have no walls, Wren stated flatly. No roof, no environmental systems. I have everything I need. Pride will not protect you from atmospheric electrical discharge or wind speeds exceeding 200 km/h, Hollis said. I am prepared to invoke emergency protocols and relocate you to communal shelter. That won't be necessary. Then show us your plan, Petra demanded. Prove you understand the danger. Daniel stood up. Come to my plot tomorrow morning. I'll show you what I've accomplished. The meeting ended with reluctant agreement. Daniel walked back to his land under the stars, which looked strange and wrong compared to Earth's constellations. He lit a small fire in the pit he'd dug earlier, not for warmth but for light and comfort. Then he sat reviewing his plans one final time. Humans didn't build like other species. They never had. Every shelter built by human hands carried thousands of years of cultural memory, of trial and error, of learning that survival meant more than just not dying. It meant living, truly living, in a space that reflected who you were and who you wanted to become. Tomorrow he would show them the difference between what they had built and what he was preparing to create. Tomorrow they would begin to understand why humans called their structures homes instead of shelters, and why that distinction mattered more than efficiency or speed. Tomorrow they would see the foundation he had really been building, the one that existed in planning and preparation rather than in physical walls. And maybe, just maybe, they would understand that some things were worth taking time to do properly. The fire crackled. The wind whispered across the empty plain. And Daniel smiled because everything was proceeding exactly as it should. Sunlight broke across the horizon in shades of orange and gold. Daniel had already been working for an hour when the other colonists arrived at his plot. They gathered in a loose semicircle, staring at what appeared to be a construction site in its earliest stages. Hollis carried a digital tablet, ready to document whatever Daniel showed them. Wren stood with his forearms crossed, skeptical. Petra perched on a rock, her wings folded tightly against her back. Several other colonists had come too, curious about the human who seemed determined to fail.
This is what you wanted us to see?
Wren asked, gesturing at the shallow trenches and piles of materials. Holes in the ground and sorted stones. Let me show you properly, Daniel said. He walked to the first trench line, which formed a rectangle, roughly 10 menors by 8 menor. This is the, foundation trench. I've dug down to the clay layer and filled it with compacted stone. This distributes the weight of the walls and prevents settling. Why does weight distribution matter? Petra asked. Energy barriers support our structures. They require no foundation. Energy requires power. Power systems fail. Stone doesn't, Daniel said. He moved to the next feature. These stones here, sorted by size, the largest ones form the base of the walls. They're placed directly on the foundation. Each layer gets progressively smaller, creating a stable structure through geometry and mass rather than technology. Hollis tapped notes into his tablet. Continue. Daniel led them to the timber piles. These are cut to exact measurements. The roof beam support posts and framework. I've already carved the joints, see? He held up 2 pieces of wood that fit together with complex interlocking cuts. No fasteners needed, though I'll use some anyway for redundancy. The wood comes from local trees, so it's already adapted to this climate. This is primitive construction, Wren said. Our ancestors built this way 10,000 years ago, and those buildings still stand on your homeworld, don't they? Daniel asked. While structures built 500 years ago with advanced materials have crumbled, Wren's antenna twitched, but he didn't respond. Daniel walked to the clay containers. This is for chinking between stones and for the interior walls. It's mixed with local plant fibers for strength. Once it dries, it becomes nearly as hard as the stone itself. It also regulates humidity naturally. You are describing a structure that will take weeks to complete. Hollis said, worry creeping into his voice. You have 4 days until storm season. I have everything prepared, Daniel said calmly. The foundation is complete. The stones are sorted and ready. The timber is cut and fitted. The clay is mixed. All that remains is assembly, and that goes much faster than you think. Impossible, Petra said. My species has 3 times your physical speed, and it took me 4 days to build my platform. You built while you planned? I planned, then I'll build. Finn had been circling the site, peering into trenches and examining stone piles. What is this for? The young Bravaki asked, pointing to a circular pit lined with stones. That's a fire pit, Daniel said. For cooking? For cooking? For warmth? For light? For gathering around. Humans have built fires in their homes for hundreds of thousands of years. Fire inside a dwelling. Hollis's fur bristled. That violates safety code. 7.3. Open flames in enclosed spaces present unacceptable risk. Not if you build a proper chimney and ventilation system, Daniel said. He pointed to a stack of shaped stones nearby. These form the fireplace and chimney. The smoke vents through the roof, but the heat radiates into the living space. Living space? Wren repeated. You keep using that term. We build survival spaces. Shelter from environmental hazards. I know, Daniel said. That's the difference. They didn't understand. He could see it in their faces. They saw what he was building as unnecessarily complex, dangerously old-fashioned, and impossibly time-consuming. They saw inefficiency where he saw permanence. They saw wasted effort where he saw investment in quality of life. I will note in my report that you have shown adequate preparation, Hollis said finally. However, I remain concerned about the completion timeline. I urge you to reconsider communal emergency shelter. Noted, Daniel said. But I'll finish my home on time. Shelter, Wren corrected. You mean shelter? No, Daniel said. I mean home. The colonists dispersed back to their own plots, shaking their heads and clicking their concern. Only Finn lingered, walking the foundation line with careful steps. Why is your shelter so big? The child asked. The regulations say minimum size is 4mm x 4mm. Yours is much larger. Because I'm not building for minimum requirements. I'm building for living. But you are only one person. Why do you need so much space? Daniel knelt down to Finn's level right now. Yes, I'm one person, but maybe someday I won't be. Maybe I'll have a family. Maybe I'll have friends who visit. Maybe someone will need a place to stay during hard times. A home should be ready for whatever life brings. Finn's eyes reflected confusion. Other species build for themselves. They expand later if needed. Your way seems inefficient. Maybe, but it also means the foundation, the walls, the roof. They're all built once, built right, built to last. I won't need to tear down and rebuild when circumstances change. The home adapts because it was designed to adapt from the beginning. The young Bravaki thought about this. My parent says humans complicate simple things. Your parent is probably right, Daniel admitted. We do complicate things, but sometimes complicated means thoughtful. Sometimes it means we're not just solving today's problem, but tomorrow's problems too. Finn skirted away, leaving Daniel alone with his piles of materials and his careful plans. He spent the rest of the day working steadily. The foundation trenches were already complete, so he began laying the first courses of stone. Each rock was placed deliberately, selecting for fit and stability. The largest stones formed corners and key stress points. Smaller stones filled gaps. Clay mortar bound everything together. By evening, the walls were knee-high around the entire perimeter. Not impressive to look at, perhaps, but absolutely solid. Daniel had also begun work on the fireplace, building it as part of the north wall. The firebox took shape, lined with flat stones that would withstand heat. The chimney base rose above it. Petra flew over as the suns dipped toward the horizon. You made progress today, she admitted. Some, Daniel said, wiping clay from his hands, but not enough. The walls must be 2 meters high, minimum. You have maybe 30 centimeters, I'll make up time. Petra tilted her head, studying him with bird-like intensity. You truly believe you will finish? I know I will. How can you be certain? Daniel gestured at his work. Because every piece is ready. The stones are sorted by the size I need for each course. The timber is pre-cut and fitted. The clay is mixed. I'm not figuring things out as I go. I'm executing a plan that's been thought through completely. But if you encounter problems, I've built in solutions, extra materials, alternative approaches, redundancy. That's part of the planning, too. Petra ruffled her feathers. My species values speed and adaptation. We build quickly, then modify as needed. Your approach feels rigid. It's not rigid. It's thorough. There's a difference. She didn't look convinced, but she flew away without arguing further. Daniel watched her silhouette against the darkening sky, heading back to her elevated platform. He wondered what it felt like to live up there, exposed to the wind. Nothing but thin walls between her and the elements. Safe, certainly, functional, absolutely, but comfortable. Did she rest easy at night, or did she simply endure until morning? He turned back to his own construction. The stone walls already felt different from the prefabricated panels and energy shields. The others had erected. They had weight and presence. They would still be here a century from now, 2 centuries longer. They would weather storms and seasons and the daily wear of living. They would age, yes, but they would age gracefully. The stone becoming more beautiful as moss grew in cracks, and the clay mortar developed a patina. This was the part other species didn't understand about human construction. They built for function and efficiency, which made perfect sense for their values and their needs. But humans built for something more. They built spaces that reflected their inner lives, their hopes, their connections to past and future. They built homes because they needed more than shelter to thrive. They needed beauty and permanence, and the quiet satisfaction of being surrounded by something they had made with their own hands. Daniel lit his fire pit as full darkness fell. The flames cast dancing shadows across his partially completed walls. 3 days remained until storm season. His structure was perhaps 10% complete by visual estimation, but he wasn't worried. Tomorrow would be a long day. Tomorrow he would push his endurance to its limits. Tomorrow the aliens would see what human determination looked like when it was properly prepared and fully committed. But tonight he sat by his fire and imagined the home as it would be when finished. He pictured firelight on interior walls. He imagined the sound of rain on the roof while he sat dry and warm inside. He thought about the door he would build, solid and welcoming, the kind of door that said home to anyone who saw it. Planning was 90% of construction. The other species had skipped that step, rushing to get walls up and roofs overhead. They had succeeded at building shelter quickly. But Daniel was building something different, something slower, something that required patience and vision and a willingness to trust the process even when others doubted. He was building a home, and homes, real homes, were always worth the extra effort. 3 days before storm season, dark clouds appeared on the horizon, not the storms themselves, but their advance warning. The atmospheric pressure dropped. The wind picked up, carrying the sharp scent of ozone and something else, something electric and dangerous. Hollis called an emergency community meeting at the central pavilion. Every colonist attended, cramming into the space designed for administrative functions rather than gatherings. Daniel stood near the back, his clothes covered in stone, dust, and clay. Storm season approaches faster than predicted, Hollis announced, his first standing on end with anxiety. Meteorology indicates first major storm in 60 hours, possibly less. All colonists must secure their structures immediately. Any incomplete dwellings must be abandoned. Affected residents will relocate to communal emergency shelter. Several voices spoke at once, translators creating a babble of sound. Hollis raised his paws for quiet. The regulations are clear. Structures must be complete and certified before storm exposure. This is for your safety. His eyes found Daniel in the crowd. Daniel Worth, human colonist, your structure remains significantly incomplete. I must insist you accept emergency housing. My structure will be complete, Daniel said. Impossible. You have foundation and partial walls only. Even with continuous work, you cannot finish in time. I can and I will. Ren pushed forward through the crowd. This is not pride speaking. It is delusion. I have monitored your progress. You work at approximately 1/3 the speed of most species. The mathematics are clear. Completion requires 80 hours of labor. You have 60 hours until storm arrival. I work differently than you measure, Daniel said. Physics does not change based on species, Wren replied. Stone has mass. Clay requires drying time. Timber must be secured. These are constants.